Finally, I'm going to get to do a video about what this channel was originally supposed to be for, an actual travel video. Our tickets are all printed, our cases are halfway packed, we've got to get up bright and early tomorrow morning, and then off we go. Time to go, said Zebedee. The dry robe is essential wear for an airport. And after a short and generally quite easy drive, here I am at Bristol Airport, ready to go. Looks like the flight's on time, so all going fine so far. We're on our way to the plane, surrounded by the background noise of many happy people who know that they're going on holiday.
It's okay, John. This plane takes off quickly.
Select flight mode on all your electronic devices in preparation for our takeoff.
And here we are in Cyprus. It was a lovely smooth flight. We've picked up our suitcases. I managed to run the gauntlet. People kept trying to block us from getting our cases, damn them. So I managed to rescue the cases from behind them, all picked up, and now we just need to get our bus to get to the hotel. Really thirsty now, a little bit hungry, late in the evening, even later in Cyprus. I'm not sure what time it is, but we're not set the watch yet. But off we go. Hello? Anyone here for us? Well, it looks like we're making our own way there on the TUI bus. That's us straight onto the minibus, really impressed with that. According to the bus thermometer, it's 38.6 degrees outside. I'm not sure I believe that, but it is toasty warm. I think I might need to take my jacket off soon. One of the first things you notice is the hot tarmac smell, and even though it's bacon here, there's not that smell around, which is a bit weird. Updated weather report, it's 23 degrees, and the time is 9:34 PM. How amazing is that? And here we go with our first look at the room. The balcony looks out over the pool, and I think that's the restaurant down there. And then coming into the bathroom, and me! So it's pretty basic, but it looks okay overall, so that's fine. Good morning, I've just woken up. It's the first proper day of the holiday. The sun's up, it's already so bright, I'm squinting despite sitting in the shade. So, as you hopefully realised, we are in Cyprus. Specifically, we are in Paphos. Paphos is one of the big tourist destinations, and you can tell there's lots of stuff around. We are in a hotel called the Kissos Hotel. First impressions, it's really quite basic. It's clean enough, but it's definitely a no-frills kind of place. We've got a tiny little balcony, which is where I'm sitting just now, and we're just about to go down and have some breakfast, so I will show you that as well. The location seems pretty good with a few things around. In fact, last night we went and we sat in a bar for some food because we arrived quite late. Again, the food was basic and there were about 150 screens all showing blooming football. But still, it was some dinner and it wasn't too expensive, so can't really complain too much. There's already a few folks sitting out by the pool. I must say, looking at the pool this morning, it definitely looked a lot better in the dark than it does in the daylight. But if you're just after a bit of sun, then it's perfectly adequate. And speaking of the sun, despite being October, it is gorgeous and warm. In fact, it's absolutely baking. It was really warm overnight as well. We do have air conditioning in the room, and Tamsin likes the room to be really warm when we sleep, and I like it to be really cold, so only one of us can ever have a good night's sleep. But I still successfully made it out of bed, and I've had a shower, so I'm not doing too badly. Anyway, dressed, time for breakfast. And that's possibly the worst coffee I've ever tasted as well. Look at this behind me. Bananas. I always find it super weird to see bananas growing on trees. I don't know why, because I know that that's where they come from, but it's so strange to see it in real life. The most important things on any holiday is making friends with all the local cats. I'm wondering if I need a new hat. So, now that we've finished the worst breakfast known to humankind, we are showered and washed again, and we are heading down to see the beach. It's only a few hundred meters away from the hotel in a nice straight direct walk, so I guess we get to go and see how it looks. So you can see the sea in the background, but the road ends. Time to find a way around. What would be really nice is a little drone to fly over the area, but the problem is around here we're not so far from Lebanon, where there is lots of GPS spoofing, which means that apparently drones are known to just fly away and disappear off to the Middle East without you telling them to. And we have successfully found a route down to the beach, even though the hotel's not actually that far away from the beach. I'm guessing less than 500 meters in a straight line, although I can check that on the maps later, so I will correct it and maybe add a message. The route isn't direct, it's a little bit of a warren trying to get through, so by foot it's a little bit further and it is a bit tricky. That said, it's really peaceful here and the beach looks quite pretty from this view. That said, there's not an awful lot of sand around here. Look at this cute little beachfront bar though. And it's probably too far away to see on this little lens, but there's a pirate ship in the background and a whole load of cyclists coming by. Several minutes of walking later and we've reached a bit that looks a little bit more like a beach. You can definitely see some yellow bits which look like sand and the sea there, so that's everything you need to call it a beach, I think. This is really gorgeous and really quite tranquil. It's not your sort of typical sandy beach. There's lots of sort of seaweed and debris and it's a little bit under-maintained, but at the same time it's really gorgeous. Generally it looks like a lovely place to sit and sunbathe and perhaps read my book for a little while, so maybe that can be a plan for later. Meanwhile, Tamsin's done a runner because I'm taking too long. I don't know if there's any sort of thing as a tracker device, but I could do with one of those just to try and keep track of her, and then when she runs off I could maybe find her again without too much difficulty. As nice as this is, it's really not the sort of place that you can go for a paddle. As we can't paddle, I'm heading back to the path to empty out all the sand from my shoes. It's always amazing how much sand you can get in a pair of sandals which you can't get out again. I mean, for something that's got open toes, you'd think it would be easy. So, you're probably asking how this compares to Bude Beach. It's a bit warmer for a start, definitely prettier, and there's less rocks. We've been walking for quite a little while now along a little rustic path by the coast. What I am impressed by is how often the path is dotted with these little free water taps just to help yourself. There's not many places I can think of where they do that, and if it was in America I'd probably have to tip somebody as well. starting to worry a little bit that the path might not be leading anywhere. What if we're lost? It must go somewhere. Well, that's a bit random. We're just walking along the shoreline and there is a shrine to Aphrodite. That's really cool, isn't it? Aphrodite is the Greek goddess of love, beauty and fertility. She was also associated with pleasure, passion and procreation. She was the goddess of the sea and seafaring and sometimes honoured as a goddess of war. While I was filming that, Thames is once again run off. Just a few hundred yards further along from Aphrodite Shrine, there is a little fortress. We're heading that way now. And we're finally back to civilization. There's an ice cream place behind me and a castle in front. Behind me there's a seating area and in front of me is the castle. Now, I'm not sure why they've got seats. I'm really curious though. I wonder whether they've got some sort of show that they put on at the castle or something like that. I really don't know. I'm not even sure how I'd find out. Unfortunately, I don't even have internet here because, well, internet roaming's so expensive. I'll probably look it up when I get back to the hotel, although the hotel isn't that posh, so the Wi-Fi isn't very good either. That said, it's probably good for me to have a little bit of a social media free period of time. Anyway, let's head over to the castle. So apparently it's Paphos Castle and it is €2.50 to get in. That's not extortionate, but at the same time it's just a little bit more than we were prepared to spend just for something that we've stumbled across. If you're interested in Paphos Castle, here's a little bit about it. The castle stands on the west side of the harbour of Paphos and was included in the coastal defensive system of Cyprus. It was built at the end of the 14th century. Originally it had 2 independent towers connected by a curtain wall, but only one of these still stands. The moat was added in 1373 and the castle continued to be used until 1546. During the Ottoman period, the West Tower was restored and the castle was used as a prison. Then, during the British rule, it became a salt store until 1935, when it was declared an ancient monument under antiquities law. I'm wondering if Cyprus hasn't been doing too well since the economic downturn. There's lots of closed places around here. There's one with a sign saying remember to wear your mask, which sort of makes me think that maybe it was around about the time of COVID that all the problems happened. But there's a lovely little market square here and it's mostly just vacant. And a bit of subliminal advertising behind me. Chris, rent a car. And this has to be the most traditional name ever for a Chinese restaurant. Now just for a quick walk along the shorefront, along the beach and down past the ghost town before we go back to the hotel. After possibly getting a tiny bit of heat stroke on the walk today, we are back at the hotel. I've downed a bottle of water, had a little rest and I'm feeling a bit better. We're off for an early dinner down in the hotel restaurant. We're going down there early simply because breakfast was so bad that there's a fighting chance we might not be able to eat food in there and we might have to go out for dinner in a restaurant elsewhere. Or we might be pleasantly surprised. Let's wait and see. So we did eat in the restaurant in the end, and actually it wasn't too bad. I wouldn't go so far as to say the food was tasty, in fact it was pretty awful, but it was kind of edible and it wasn't too awful. Overall, I suppose I give it a good solid 2 stars. 1 star would be inedible and 3 stars would be okay. The food was apparently Mexican themed tonight, although it was just your sort of typical hotel buffet line, nothing particularly nice. Nothing particularly Greek either. We started off with a tomato soup, which sort of tasted like passata really, so not really soup. Then there were a selection of unlabelled salads, not ideal if you had any sort of allergies or anything. Tamsin's vegetarian, so it was quite difficult for her to be able to tell which one of the cold dishes was vegetarian. Lots of different meats for all the main courses, although all the meat was generally just pork in different shape and different coloured sauces. And then the desserts were the sort of typical hotel wine things, various different colours of sort of gelatinous slop. So there's a choice between the chocolatey looking slop and the white coloured slop. I'm a huge fan of desserts, so I chose not to have any and just have some water instead. Anyway, now we're going to go out to one of the bars for a cocktail, or perhaps 2 cocktails, and then maybe a sleep because I'm really tired. This morning Tamsin's woken up with COVID or the flu or something like that, so a quick run down to the pharmacy and to get some medications, and then unfortunately time to write off the rest of the day. This morning I thought I'd get up early and go for a swim before breakfast, but it looks like I've been thwarted on that particular plan. It looks like they're doing the pool cleaning, so I can't really go in. Also, even though it's not particularly busy by the pool, there's already people that have dumped their towels on their sunbeds by the poolside. I don't know if anyone else gets really irritated by this. Wouldn't it be a massive shame if some of those towels by the pool fell in somehow? I'm also just getting a little bit irritated by how small the balcony is. Since the UK dropped out of Europe, unfortunately telephone companies no longer have inclusive roaming minutes, so it means that you have to get a roaming package. Now the roaming package with my company is I think £26 for a month, which is a lot when I'm only here for a week, so I just didn't really feel that was good enough value to pay for. It's left me feeling just a little bit isolated and cut off from the world though. Another really rubbish thing about the hotel is the key system. Between the two of us we only get 1 key. It's tied up to the lights. There's one of those little things that you have to slot in to turn the power on in the room, and that's physically attached to the key and nothing else can be used in there instead. What that means is if there's 2 of you travelling, you're both tied together effectively. One person can't go out without leaving the other person completely in the dark in the room, or without having a key and then having to knock on the door to get back in. I know that doesn't sound like a huge problem, but Tamsin's feeling a little bit under the weather, and last night I was desperate to go out and just sit by the bar and relax for a little bit. Of course, she didn't really feel much like it and just wanted to stay in and sleep. In fact, she'd been quite poorly. She'd been sleeping most of the day, so I was getting a little bit of cabin fever. I could hear the music in the background, but I couldn't get to the bar even though I could see it. I found myself completely trapped in the room, not really able to leave the balcony, which is tiny, or I'd have had to leave the key behind, which would have meant that when I came back I'd have had to pound on the door and wake her up even though she's feeling poorly. So that meant that the evening was ruined for both of us. Another thumbs down there then, unfortunately. Well, it's a gorgeous day and we're sitting down by the pool, so I'm just about to jump in and have a dip. Look how glossy I am. Interestingly, the Cyprus Pizza Hut is almost exactly the same as the UK one. Not that I've been in a UK one for ages, so I don't know if the menu's exactly the same, but the choices are kind of similar, except they've got a stuffed crust with Philadelphia as well as the mozzarella one, which is quite exciting. And that is what we're having. Tamsin's brain's not braining at the moment because she's a bit poorly, and she thought that the Philadelphia stuffed crust pizza was from Philadelphia rather than having Philadelphia cheese in, so she's just had a little epiphany moment, which was very cute. Anyway, in the middle of the Philadelphia stuffed crust, we are having a margarita pizza middle. So the pizza is going to be my first lunch and Tamsin's second lunch before we go for proper dinner later. That's why we're sharing. First of all though, our drinks have just arrived. Tamsin's got a chocolate milkshake and I have a lemonade. I was thinking of having a mojito, though I'm not sure how good a Pizza Hut mojito would be. And actually having a mojito at lunchtime probably means I'll just want to sleep for the rest of the day. So I'll save myself up for later. And it's pizza time. It's a bit of a floppy one. Excuse the embarrassing hat. The sun is absolutely brutal here. We bought ourselves a 1.5 litre bottle of water about 10 minutes ago and it's already almost completely gone. Right now we're down by the harbour side and we're just about to go into the archaeological dig site of Paphos. We walked past it earlier and it looks kind of interesting. No idea exactly what's there, so we'll see when we go in. But it looks pretty interesting, so let's see. First of all though, just look at the view behind me. And here I am at the Nea Pafos archaeological dig site. Hopefully I've said that right.
And all sunshine when she's gone, and she always gone too long. Anytime she goes away.
Following morning I choose everything edible on the breakfast menu. Unfortunately there's a lot less choices for vegetarians. Bring your own milk. Now let's go and visit the old town. Today's trip is to Paphos Old Town. We're slightly lost at the moment. We've just caught the bus. Tamsin's following Google Maps and flew up my nose. I think we're getting closer. There's more and more stuff around and there's not many people though. That said, there's a map and there's some subtle clues about where to go on the map. So off we go. One of the first things I notice is just how much more noise and pollution there seems to be. Also lots of renovation work. Look at that fancy mural, but it's been half knocked through. I'm not sure whether they are going to do that up again. It would be a shame to lose it. It is off season at the moment, so I suppose it might just seem a little bit desolate because it's off season. It does feel a bit like a ghost town. Ooh, people. Tamsin's just homed in on the vegan restaurant. So far we've only eaten quite horrible food, so the thought of something nice is quite appealing, and I'm suspecting for Tamsin the thought of something vegan and nice is even more appealing. We're definitely coming into a more town-like area. It's always a relief when you're travelling that you're not ending up in some sort of back street where you get murdered, so hopefully no murdering today. There's a few street vendors out, kind of bazaar-like stores. They're mostly selling things like fabrics and the good old leather belts, which are always for sale in these kind of street stores. I think we might get one of the little Cyprus bags just as a souvenir, but a useful souvenir for when we go shopping. There's nothing like showing off that you've been to Cyprus when you go to the supermarket. Look at this, it's an outdoor elevator, so you don't have to walk up and down stairs to the car park in the heat. We're just coming into the main town. Oh, and we're not. We've just found a castle. Looking at it, I wonder whether it might be a mosque. Well, it's definitely a mosque churchy kind of place. There's also loads of cats around, so I'm having to be a bit careful where I stand, if you know what I mean. In the old town, there's actually loads of lovely little rustic shops, including this one, which is full of various probably local vintage kind of wines. I don't know if any of the wines are actually any good, but I really love the way that they're presented. So here I am in Stephanie Rose Cafe, which is apparently the most Instagrammable cafe in all of Cyprus. I can definitely see why. It's really pretty. It looks a bit like a Barbie fairy tale fantasy cafe. Everything in here is a shade of pink. There's lots of ice creams and cakes and sweet things. Not to mention lots of grumpy looking staff who seem a bit sick of seeing people with cameras. Cheers! Oh, quite warm. So first impressions, my milkshake is not very chocolatey and it's kind of warm. More marks for aesthetics than there are for flavour. Because we're trying to do this trip on a bit of a budget, I've brought a packed lunch rather than us eating out. So, something slightly exotic today. I've got myself a dragon fruit for lunch. I've actually never had dragon fruit before, so here we go. It's sort of nice, sort of squishy, bit flavourless. Bit seedy. It's maybe a little bit like pomegranate, perhaps pomegranate crossed with celery and grape. Though if anyone's got a better description of the taste, please feel free to let me know. On second thoughts, it probably tasted a little bit like kiwi fruit as well. I don't think it's the best thing I've ever tasted, but then it's the first time I've ever tried it and it had been sitting in the room for a day, so possibly it's supposed to be slightly sweeter than it was. I'll maybe give it another go before making a final decision. I think we might have actually seen most of the old town now, so we are just thinking of actually getting some lunch because Tamsin's still a little bit hungry after her slices of melon. It really is strangely quiet in the town. I'm not sure if that's just because it's off season or whether it's just generally quiet here. There was a big financial crash in Greece a few years ago and I wonder whether that's part of it. Anyway, the important thing right now is I've just got a latte and it's going to be so nice to have a decent coffee after a few days without any. That was a really tasty lunch. We had sort of flatbread sandwiches. Mine was tuna, Tamsin had a sort of pesto and cheese one, and they were both really good. So I would highly recommend that as a nice little cafe to go to. We're both absolutely baking now though, so we're going to get the bus back to the hotel. And then the first job will be to jump in the swimming pool. So a little bit of double dipping to cool off. And now off for dinner. We're just out for an evening dinner treat. We've been to Wagamama's and now we're at a little local bakery for some delicious dessert. Some chocolate baklava, a little chocolate truffle ball and chocolate biscuity cake. When I used to live in Aberdeen, the chocolate truffle balls always came in a sort of sausage shape and I didn't know what they were called, and I've been trying to explain to Tamsin for ages exactly what they are, and I always called them chocolate poos when I was up there, and she didn't know what I was talking about. So what I've got is the chocolate poo ball. And now, alas, it's time to leave our beautiful hotel. But there's just time for us to store our suitcases and squeeze in one last quick day trip before we head to the airport. And after the Tombs of the Kings, my camera got packed away just because it's such a pain trying to film while I'm travelling through the airport. So I will leave you with a picture of the worst scrambled eggs known to humankind.